Shabbat Shalom, my friends. In case you haven't noticed, we've just exited the month of Cheshvan. And this past Tuesday, we actually started the month of Kislev. Okay, so why should anybody care? Cheshvan gets a really bad rap because it's quite a boring month. It began right after Simchat Torah, and it contains no holiday observance of any kind, nada, nothing. One might reasonably guess that the rabbis of old understood that after the rigors of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot, and Simchat Torah, it just might be a good idea to take a breath and to feel what normalcy is all about before we leap into the celebration of Hanukkah. Many of us would probably find normalcy in our lives to be something profoundly attractive right now. Please, dear God, bore us with a normal political environment. Please, dear God, bore us with an absence of devastating health emergencies. Please, dear God, bore us with a climate, with an environment that don't display irrefutable signs of disruption and even of decay. Please, dear God, bore us with normal school days, normal working and shopping environments, normal recreational opportunities. Open up my gym, please. Normal hanging out with people whose faces we actually can see without masks someday. There is a powerful Jewish value, a value deeply embedded in Musar literature known as Hakarat HaTov. I've mentioned it here before. Hakarat HaTov. Recognizing, seeing, acknowledging when something good is actually taking place. My friends, it's really quite easy when things are going poorly and someone points out a speck of light on the horizon for us to say, yeah, but. Somehow we seem to feel that by confessing that we also see that light, even if it's a tiny pinpoint of light, we are somehow diminishing or dismissing the real and distressing discomfort that we feel. By reaching toward, by embracing Hakarat HaTov, we are liberated. We can celebrate, if we so choose, the outcome of the recent presidential campaign. We can celebrate the rapid development of at least 2 vaccines that seem to hold tremendous hope for the future, for ourselves, for our families, for our communities, for our country, for our world. We can celebrate what we learned about the actual, measurable impact human beings have on the environment during the massive shutdowns caused by COVID-19. We can stop saying, yeah, but, and begin to think that there will indeed be a time in the not too distant future when normalcy and a bit of its boring nature will actually be part of our lives once again. Okay, our Sedra is TOLDOT, Genesis 25:19 and following. There are great stories, familiar stories here. Rebekah, Isaac's beloved wife, is pregnant. Hallelujah. Good news. The pregnancy is unusually difficult. Rebekah knows that she's carrying twins, and she also knows that her womb feels like a battleground. The twins seem to be struggling, pushing, shoving. They may even be fighting with each other. How could that be? Rebekah worries that she will not be able to survive this pregnancy. Surely not an unusual fear in ancient times. What can she do? Where could she turn? The text tells us in a most interesting phrase, Vatelech lidrosh et Adonai. Rebekah went lidrosh, to inquire of the Eternal. Shai Held wants us to focus on that word lidrosh, to inquire. He warns us not to let the simplicity of that phrase deceive us. Lidrosh et Adonai. Rebekah seems to be speaking directly with God. She's a woman. Some would have erroneously described her back then as not me, just a woman. And she's not her father-in-law, Abraham. She's not a priest. She's not a designated prophet or seer or oracle. Held quotes my friend and teacher, Dr. Tamar Ashkenazi, quote, "The text pointedly omits any mention of mediated communication, which suggests that Rebekah addresses God directly and that God responds to her with equal directness." Close quote. Rebekah didn't pull out her iPhone 12 Pro Max, find a place where 5G had the best connectivity, and make the call. The best guess is that she followed the norms of her day and used divination, perhaps observing natural phenomena like cloud formations, or using dream interpretation like Joseph, or scanning for anatomical abnormalities in the liver of a sacrificed sheep. Personally, I suspect that each of those methods worked equally well. But wait, listen again to that Hebrew phrase, Vatelech lidrosh et Adonai lidrosh. The root means to seek out. Rebekah went to seek out what comes next from God. Early on in the biblical narrative, lidrosh was used to describe what Moses did when he wanted to inquire of God what God wanted Moses to do next. And the Israelites, when they wanted guidance from Moses, same word shows up. They went lidrosh. They went to inquire of Moses what Moses wanted from them. From the earliest of time, you could use divination the way that Rebekah did. No professional required. Later, you would seek guidance from seers and prophets like Moses. But then Held reminds us that Ezra the scribe, long associated with the redaction of the Torah itself, was praised in this way, quote, Ezra had dedicated himself lidrosh the Torah of God. Now, Ezra wasn't resorting to divination here, nor to messages delivered by prophets. When Ezra sought out the will of God, lidrosh, what God wanted of him, Ezra sought out that guidance by plunging himself into the study of the newly emerging sacred books of our people. So we move from the liver of a sacrificial sheep to a passionate commitment to find God's ever-renewing instructions from what would become the written law and the oral law, the Tanakh and the Talmud. What a journey! Liver to text. A frantic Rebekah sought out information from God the only way that she knew. A revolutionary Ezra helped move forward the process by which each and every one of us can pursue wisdom and an understanding of God through our own daily study. As Professor Moshe Greenberg observed, Torah in all of its meanings and manifestations, in its mitzvot, and in its moral teachings, appeared before the Jewish people as words. And through the study of those words, God's will became manifest. Held expands upon this insight in a way that I have to tell you I'm still trying to struggle with. Quote, standing in the presence of Torah, we sense or we affirm that we are standing in the presence of God. The still small voice of God lives within the letters of the Torah, awaiting our attention. Held concludes, this is a powerful, powerful sentence. Even in moments when we lose God, we still have Torah. Even in moments when we lose God, we still have Torah. Through divination, Rebekah found the insights that would guide her fraught relationship with the twins, Jacob and Esau. Through the work of Ezra and the rabbis who followed him, we learn to sense the closeness of God and to acquire intimations of the divine will from words that are the very soul of our sacred texts. What a beautiful lesson. A lesson that isn't boring or ordinary at all. So have a wonderful Shabbat and a very happy Thanksgiving. Then we'll get to Hanukkah later on. Be safe. Be well. Let's see each other next week. Shabbat Shalom. Have a great week.